Broadcasting live from Blood Hill Bastion on the plain of Equilor, this is Tap Tap Concede. Welcome everybody to Tap Tap Concede. We have a slightly different lineup than usual this week. I'm Graham, I'm still here, and Paul is still here with me.
Hello.
But James and Kathleen are not, and instead we have our friend Alex, who you may remember from a variety of things, such as Friday nights and Desert Bus and Crap Shots and
Previous
loading
Tap Tap
times and
Concede as well.
and oh right, I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah, I
no,
snuck in.
that was
late.
a Lurcast, wasn't it?
Maybe it was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, and also our friend Serge is here. You might recognize Serge from once again from brief appearances during Desert Bus, but also from the background of the first episode of the new season of Friday Nights.
At his job where he actually formerly worked,
Yeah.
Our
I polished a counter.
making good
Mhm.
coffee.
our suspiciously knowledgeable barista.
Yeah.
on Friday nights.
And they're here because we have a really cool topic to talk about this week, which is Highlander. And then related to that, the perhaps a little bit more accessible Budgetlander variant, which we'll hear all about later on. But first, we got to do our Crack-A-Pack. Very excited. This is a pack of Cold Snap.
Oh yeah!
Oh,
Oh,
snap. Cold
yeah.
Snap. So Cold Snap
It's another
was...
small pack, isn't it?
This is the sequel
nope,
to
this is 15.
Ice
Ice
Age.
Age.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is the third part of the Ice Age block.
What do you mean third part?
I thought it was just two.
No,
It goes Ice Age, Alliances.
alliances and then nothing, and then they finished the third because the block has 3 expansions, but they didn't do Cold Snap until like way later.
Did not know that.
Makes Iceland's modern legal.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you
Or
could
So
play.
the
Snowland.
snow-covered lands.
Yeah.
So you could play Scred.
You want it?
Are there any playable snow cards?
There's a couple of things where it's like where you can like get some tricky stuff where it's like if you only have snow covered lands,
Yeah.
then
like-
when people are like name a land type,
So-
you can trick them. Or
I
something.
don't think that they did the whole like 3 expansions to a block thing back when they did Ice Age and Alliances, but they'd done sort of like they did like Antiquities and Legends and Fallen Empires, and they did like Ice Age and Alliances, and then they did Mirage and Visions and Weatherlight and da 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 da, and then everyone was looking and being like, you guys never. It looks like you never finished the Ice Age block, and so they did, and they did Cold Snap years later.
I envision some Wizards of the Coast employee like running down the hallway, being like, "Guys, I just noticed we totally missed that expansion." It's like,
Yeah.
"What? That was Cold Snap. We never brought it out." What? Oh no!
Except the problem is that it was meant to be drafted all by itself, and so there's a bunch of
Oh really?
This set's
Bunch of
really
weird-
weird.
it's-
Oh yeah,
Wow,
of course
really
you would have to
weird.
draft it all by yourself.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to
Ugh.
flip over our.
So it was like
Our
cold
blast.
draft.
All
Okay,
right,
what
so
do we got?
first one is Surging Flame. It is an instant for 1 and a red. I'll read it out. Don't worry. It's an instant for 1 and a red with Ripple 4. Ripple is. It says here when you play this spell, you may reveal the top 4 cards of your library. I guess that's just you reveal the Ripple number. You may play any revealed cards with the same name as this spell without paying their mana cost. Put the rest in the bottom of your library, and Surging Flame deals 2 damage to target creature or player. So you shock for 2. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. If you see another Surging Flame, you just get to cast it for free.
So it's the like limited unplayable.
Yeah,
mechanic,
that
basically.
seems bad and limited, and also not great in constructed. It's like maybe if you have like.
But you probably the
deck
thing is
manipulation?
you probably still take it in limited just as
Oh, yeah, it's removable.
as a shock.
It's a shock.
No,
It's a
man,
bad shock.
You draft mono flame.
Monoflame.
It's
The Surging
yeah.
Flame deck.
bad and limited, possibly bad and constructed, delicious on ice cream.
Mhm.
Ripple. Mm.
Snow-covered swamp.
Hey.
Wait, which one?
That one, the one with like
I think
kind of like a phallic iceberg in the back.
Oh, it's not even.
they
doesn't
only
even
did
show
one
up as-
variant
No, it's you just got to find like swamp. I
in
think.
this set, didn't they? Because they had several snow-covered lands in. Oh,
There we go. Card
Uh,
153 of 155.
Ooh, there you go.
Would
The,
be
the cold
ice-
snap symbol is the little icicles.
Mm-hmm.
Paul's trying to find this specific artwork.
You might
For
have to
the-
go snow-covered swamp
Where are
instead
the
of
ice-
basic swamp.
it is snow-covered swamp.
Yeah, I don't see any icicles here.
So I think you
Well-
have to change the name to snow-covered
Yep.
swamp.
Yeah.
It's
This is
still,
for the benefit of those of you watching the vidcast
Oh, yeah, there we
version.
go. Snow.
Yeah,
Oh,
snow-
there's a hyphen.
Yeah, snow-covered lands still count as basics, but they also count as snow-covered lands.
That's the art right there.
I'm sorry, that is not a swamp.
Pardon me.
That is obviously like an ocean.
Like the ice flows. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's not a swamp at all. All right.
But I believe so. There's weird interactions with Snowland, right?
Yeah, well, this set was a Snow Matters block
Yeah.
where they would have snow creatures and you could tap snow mana.
Yeah, there was
Like-
snow
Oh,
permanence
right. There was actually like a snow mana.
symbol.
Snowflake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
It was a
snowflake.
snowflake.
You have
Yeah.
to tap
It-
snow to make this work.
But
It looked like the Ice Age expansion symbol.
Mm.
Really weird.
And this also let them do a bunch of callbacks to stuff from Ice Age, such as the Keldorans. This next card is the Keldoran Javelineer. It is a 1/2 for 1 white. It also let them bring back cumulative upkeep.
Oh yeah.
So it's a 1/2 for 1 white with cumulative upkeep of 1 colorless. Tap and Keldoran
Keldor.
KJ?
K Geldoran.
Kajeldarin.
I was looking for. Because
Or
there's
maybe the K is silent. It's just like Yeldarin.
I believe it's Keldoran. but
Yeldoran.
I could be wrong. Anyway, tap it, and Keldoran Javelineer deals damage to target attacking or blocking creature equal to the number of age counters on Keldoran Javelineer. Because that's the upkeep, right?
Huh.
So, because the upkeep is the beginning of your upkeep, you put an age counter on it and then sacrifice it unless you pay its upkeep cost for each age counter on it.
So it like pings for 1, then 2, then.
Except it's only
Now-
attacking blocking creatures.
You're a level 1 judge,
Hmm.
Serge.
Uh-oh.
Can you, on a given upkeep, put an age counter on it, and in response to the sacrifice of, can you tap it in response on a turn you do not pay?
For this one, no.
It's attacking or
because
blocking
it's
creature.
attacking or blocking, which doesn't happen.
Oh,
in
right.
upkeep.
Wah, wah.
So that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, I had a theory.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it
yeah. Normally,
didn't matter.
yeah, you can do stuff in response.
If it wasn't attacking or blocking, could you do
yeah,
that?
if it was like ping, do a damage.
Okay,
then
so
you'd
like the
be
cumulative
fine.
upkeep thing isn't part of the.
Oh, you mean put an extra counter on it and then before it dies? No, that all goes together.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use it before it dies, but you can't like put the counter on and then in response to the counter
Because
but
it's
before you pay
because
it.
it's the number because it's equal to the number of counters.
It kind of all happens
So
at once.
you can't like okay, it's
Right,
my
'cause-
upkeep. I put a counter on it, and then before then the sacrifice whatever goes on the stack or something, I
It-
tap and deal damage, and then it just dies.
It all happens at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess like if you look at the actual reminder text, it's all one clause,
Yeah.
right?
Frozen Solid, which is a
Seems appropriate.
fun piece of awkward blue removal. It is 1 blue
They're
blue.
all awkward.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is 1 blue blue for a creature enchantment. Creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step, and whenever it is dealt damage, destroy it.
That's actually
It's a
Good.
different
Fine and
different-
flavorful.
different art, I think.
yeah.
was,
That's
was this
This is a reprint?
reprinted somewhere? What expansion
in
is that?
Scourge.
Scourge.
Oh, okay. Look at the cold snap art. It's like like a guy. It's like an
oh.
explorer. Being
He's
like,
having a
oh
bad day."
no, he looks kind of Russian.
I like that's like the opposite of Ice Cage. Just like Ice Cage when it's targeted by thing, the cage dies. This when you do damage to it, the guy dies.
I like the flavor. He shatters.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
frozen.
that's awesome. It's
Crunch.
like doing and then like
Hasta la vista.
yeah, it could be it could be anything. It could be an Eldrazi.
All right,
He's
this
still-
is
Dink.
this is super goofy.
Uh-oh.
But my money's on this guy to win the Iditarod. This is the Zombie Musher.
Ah,
It is a 3
I
and
have Zombie Master.
no zombie musher. 3 and a black for a snow creature zombie. Is a 2/3 with snow landwalk, and for 1
Ooh.
snow mana, regenerate zombie musher. And look at the picture. He's got little zombie dogs
Word.
on his
Ah.
sled.
That's super
So
cute.
snow is actually a super type.
Yeah, it's a super type on the land too.
So you can regenerate them for a mana of any color as long as it's snow.
As long as it's snow
Yeah,
covered.
so you
Mhm.
could tap like a snow-covered
And he's
mountain.
got snow
regenerate the
landwalk
sled.
because of his sled dogs.
Seems pretty
Nice.
good.
Snow Landwalk.
I don't know why the zombie dogs would care about being whipped.
I don't know. Ronom Hulk, Ronom. 4 and a green for a 5/6 beast with protection from snow.
Ooh. So
Meaning
he has protection from the
he can
zombie.
he can block that zombie musher all day long.
Nope,
But-
not if they have snowlands.
Well, that's true. And then he can't
Damn.
block. And he has a cumulative upkeep of 1 because they hate you, apparently.
His 5/6 protection from snow is too good.
Protection
I
from
guess.
snow, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
the
hey.
upkeep.
A card you mentioned earlier,
Oh.
Scred.
Ah!
Dat Scred. It is
Actually, a good card.
one red instant. Scred deals damage to target creature equal to the number of snow permanents you control.
Is
Oh
it-
yeah.
Yeah. SKRED.
In
Yeah.
what is this relevant?
Well, in the format we're about to talk to, if you play all snow basics, that can dome for a lot. I mean,
Hmm.
it's maybe about as good as like what's that 1 damage, or like, no 4 damage, 1 red sorcery. It's like flame, cut you, face explosion, bomb.
Flame burst? No.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
I'm
This is
thinking
gonna
of
drive me insane.
Pyro-
The one where you
Pyroblast?
sack 2 mountains and do 4?
It's just 1 red sorcery, 4 damage to a creature.
Oh, Flame Slash.
That's the one.
Right.
It's sort of like that, only
Except it's an
instant.
instant. All right, I'm going to set that one
So it's
aside.
like if you have a whole bunch of.
Maybe we'll talk about that
yeah.
later. So not only are the Kildorans back, but so are the Krovicans.
Whoa!
Mm.
Krovikan Scoundrel. He's 1 and a black for a 2/1.
Black Piker.
Human Rogue. He's just a black
Piker
piker.
Rogue.
Not even a bear.
Nope.
Yeah.
Sorry, I like when you look up for Krovikan. There's all the Krovikan scoundrel. None. It
Yep.
has no text.
He's no text.
text.
Oh,
He does say the few surviving humans of Krov, would have welcomed the return of winter and its sterilizing cold. They often peered northward, hoping the snow's edge had reached their infested city tomb.
This guy's ability is like have a poem on him.
yeah.
Oh, so I guess the deal is that cold snap is like things are thawing out, and
No,
so like zombies.
no,
are
no.
coming?
Like there was an ice age, and this is just like just a brief little cold snap.
Oh, I see.
Uh-oh.
Wow.
Pantide.
So Ripple counted things in your library, but things in your graveyard were also relevant
Mm-hmm.
in Cold Snap, such as Rune Snag for 1 and a blue,
That's a
an
card.
instant
It's
counter target spell unless its controller pays 2, plus an additional 2 for each card named Rune Snag in each graveyard.
This is a good counter.
So
There's a burn that does that too. that
Yeah.
I know
Mm.
it's in Those of the Planeswalkers.
They did a
So-
couple cards like that in some earlier sets. I can't remember, like Muscle Burst and
Just
things
by
like
it-
that.
so just by itself, this is a mana leak.
Days.
Days.
You need 3
No,
for it
it's-
to be a mana leak.
3 is the mana
No,
leak.
no, no,
Thank you.
Days is 1. This is 1 less than Mana Leak, so it's slightly worse
So it's-
than Mana Leak.
So without any pretend that the second part of this isn't even there. It's 1 and a blue counter target spell unless its controller pays 2.
Oh yeah, it's still real good.
Oh, 2. I thought it was 1.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
2. So that seems fine.
That would be Force Spike.
I was like, is this just a bad Force Spike?
No, that seems
The
fine.
world's worst Force
Yeah,
Spike.
yeah, pay 2.
Yeah, like it's maybe not as good as Mana Leak, but that seems
Miscalc
that's-
without the cycle.
Yeah, it's miscalculation without cycle.
It's a counter spell that you could actually run in limited because it's so cheap.
Yep. You can actually
and then
play that.
randomly, if you happen to have another one in your graveyard or another one in theirs, then they have to pay an additional 2 for it. So that's kind of
But
interesting.
isn't Rune Snag played in Modern?
I think I've
Or
seen
maybe
it before.
Legacy?
Yeah. Or
Because yeah, you can play 4 of them and,
And
then
it's-
they're really good.
And it's if you're, I mean, and if you're in like Highlander or some mono form, like some singleton format, then it's just another
Yeah,
fine counter.
it's not even the worst.
Yeah.
Like it's another soft counter.
like
and those are fine.
counter number 15 if you
Pretty
if you really
much.
need that many in your deck.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Martyr of Sands.
Yeah.
that's
is a-
part of a legacy deck, I think.
A 1/1 for a white. For 1, reveal X white cards from your hand and sacrifice Martyr of Sands, and you gain 3 times X life.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is part of the Soul Sisters deck.
That's modern. Yeah, I don't know if
Was
there's
it modern?
Legacy Soul Sisters,
I
but
thought it
that's
started as a legacy deck and then became a modern deck,
Probably.
because it's just like I'm gonna gain all the life in the whole world.
You'll
Looks
notice
like,
that
looks like there's a cycle of martyrs in Cold
Oh
Snap.
yeah.
you'll notice that Surge and Alex are a lot more plugged into the broader metagame of Magic than we are, which is great. This is
Yeah.
this is really cool.
They can tell us if something is a card or not.
Ooh, ooh.
a
Bull.
card or a shim.
Okay, are Bull Aurochs a card?
Oh, I think that's a 4/4 for 2 with some type of terrible cumulative upkeep.
Nope.
Not
that's-
even close?
I
No,
think
no,
that
you're
one's just the
thinking
Aurochs.
Aurochs Herd,
Oh man.
which is sweet in Pauper.
Bull Auroch seems pretty sweet actually. It's a 2/1 for 1 and a green. So it's a green piker with trample,
Hey,
Mm.
but it gets +1/+0 whenever it attacks for each other attacking Aurochs.
So it's like a stampede.
Mhm.
That's
Got some
seems
good
very
flavor.
playable. And
How many Aurochs are there?
a handful?
Well, you remember when we opened an Ice Age booster and we got just Aurochs,
Yeah.
and we were like, how many Aurochs are there? And we looked it up, and there's the one in Ice Age, and then there's like 6 in Cold Snap because they tried to because they looked
Actually
at Ice
make
Age.
them relevant.
Well, they looked at Ice Age and they were like, huh, Aurochs. We should make Aurochs a thing
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
in
well,
Cold Snap,
there's
and they
a-
all get buffs depending on other Aurochs,
Yeah, so-
mostly.
which
Hmm.
is great because they're like bull creatures, and so it's like a big stampede. Like there's an Auroch
It's like
creature.
early battalion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that like it pumps each other, and also when you play one, you can tutor for more of them. So it was like a little bit like Squadron Hawk. So you
Mm.
play one and you find another, and then play that one, find another. It didn't find all of them. But
Except it's bulls.
Yeah, if
Bulls.
only
Which
it was
seems
a beast.
good.
Oh!
You know, there's a lot of beast creature types. They're making this super tiny tribal.
Yeah,
that is
terrible
actually
thing.
its creature type is Auroch.
Yeah,
Aurochs. Yeah. Make sure you're close up on the mic.
Yeah.
Its creature type is Aurochs, plural.
Yeah, we looked it up. It was a real creature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. All right,
Huh.
Like it's a
Here's a fun one.
sort of an ancestor of a bull.
like
of
a
cow.
like a muskox.
Yeah,
Oh, they
yeah.
didn't make it up. I understand. It's
Yeah.
a real creature. Like,
Yeah.
Huh.
Highland Weald.
This
Weld.
cycle.
Anyway, it's a snow land, but not a snow basic land. It comes into play tapped, and you can add red or green to your mana pool.
Right.
That seems nice.
Well, they did tap lands, only they
Mhm.
added the snow type.
So that's a
Ooh,
that's a guild
In
gate.
which colors? In all the
I think it's
friend-
all allied colors.
all the allied colors?
Because red green means
Yet
allied.
another land that I didn't know about that I need to get for my commander decks.
Yeah, it's a guild gate. Early
So it's,
guild gate.
so
That's
it's
fine.
early Gruul guild gate.
Alright.
Except it's
Ooh, actually,
snow,
it could
which
be better
might be more
because you could
relevant.
play Into the North and put it into play. But Into the North, which is like rampant growth number 4.
But doesn't it want a forest?
But
This
only-
No,
doesn't
no,
have
no.
a-
only
It's
looks for
it's a
snowland?
snowland.
Of course
I think
it
you
is.
find a snowland, put it into play. It might be a basic. I'm not sure.
Arctic Nishoba is a
Kitty.
6/6 cat warrior for 5 and a green with trample with
Oh,
a
yeah.
cumulative upkeep green or white. When Arctic Nishoba is put into a graveyard, you gain 2 life for each age counter on it.
Yeah, I
that
remember
seems
this guy.
really cool.
Yeah.
So you keep paying. So you get a 6/6 with trample for 7. That seems fine, right? Like that's all right. And then you keep paying its upkeep, and eventually, if it dies or you decide you don't want to pay its upkeep anymore, then you basically cash it in for 2 life for however many times you paid its upkeep. Seems all right to me.
It's always nice because like cumulative upkeep is one of those things where it's just like this
That
huge
sucks.
investment that's
Yeah.
just
Mhm.
terrible.
Oh,
Uh-oh.
yeah. This guy's. Hang on. Okay, I'm gonna go to the foil first because the foil is our
Ooh.
3rd uncommon.
Ooh.
The foil is a Darkar Wind Form. It is a 3/3 for 4 and a blue with flying, and for 1 and a snow, target creature loses flying until end of turn. Little weird.
I love that mechanic. They
So you
keep
can,
trying
like-
to put it into stuff.
You can like take away their flying blocker, I guess. It'd be
It's like,
like,
I'm flying, you're not.
Well, it seems good in limited where like evasion is super important. I don't know.
I mean, but it's I guess in this format, snow covered is or like you having the snow thing is fine.
Now, I don't know how well the two of you know the Magic Online cube,
Oh.
but what rare from Cold Snap do you think?
Dark
would-
Depths.
Nope.
Are
would be in the
you kidding?
would be in the Magic Online cube.
That's from Cold Snap.
Oh, I feel like
Yeah.
There's Zur the Enchanter. No, that's not powerful enough for cube.
I'm
I like
sure
Dark
I'm gonna.
Depths. I like
I'm
Dark
sure I'm gonna
Depths.
know this as soon as you reveal it. So.
It is the Oran Viper.
Oh right.
Oh, wow.
Real good.
Yeah.
He is a 1/3 snake for 1 green. It's OHRAN. OHRAN. Whenever Oran Viper deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature at the end of combat. So I don't believe that's been oracled to Death Touch because it works
No,
slightly
It
differently.
is
Pre
different.
death touch or.
Yeah, it is pre-Death Touch.
It's the same as the Basilisk.
hmm And whenever Oran Viper deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card.
So good.
Yeah,
In
it's
green.
It's Nephidian in green that has Death Touch, and it's a 1/3. It's great.
Yeah, it's,
Oran Viper's really good,
it's very
Real
playable.
good.
and it's a snow creature. So
So
as
you
long
got
as they
there.
don't have that stupid zombie.
So, actually, the videos.
Zombie
So,
musher.
Surge.
Mm.
What is the difference between this and Death Touch?
Pretty sure this one uses the stack. So you have a triggered ability, it deals damage, and then that ability goes on the stack, whereas Death Touch, it just happens.
Death touch,
Okay.
it happens as part of the damage
Yeah.
resolution. Oh, I see. So you could respond to this, whereas otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
Stifle.
Ah, interesting.
Stifle its death ability.
I don't know.
Well, weirder things have happened. I
Yeah.
mean, people
Because
are-
and then there's
this
also
is why
Not a good play. But
there's in Dragon's Maze there's the creature enchantment Unflinching Courage, which is functionally, it seems, identical to Armadillo Cloak, and in fact they were going to reprint Armadillo Cloak in Dragon's Maze, but then someone said, hang on, Armadillo Cloak doesn't actually have lifelink. It has, whenever this creature deals combat damage, you gain that much life.
so you could cast it on the other guy's
Which
creature.
which is not strictly the same as lifelink.
Mhm.
It's a corner case where it would matter, but
It-
it's
I mean, that actually is pretty relevant. Like you can basically turn his creature into useless.
yeah, like if they have like a
oh.
big beefy
So it-
like 6/6, you put the Armadillo Cloak on it, then it becomes an 8/8, but you
just-
gain 8 life whenever it deals damage.
It just like fights, like block me, block me.
Now now there are some creatures that have a similar ability, like this killing ability, but it's actually if they're blocked, like they don't even have to deal damage,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then that's a whole other thing because then it's okay even if their power is 0 or whatever.
Yeesh.
So
So you got there.
there we go. Orin Viper, probably one of the better rares we could hope to get out of a pack of Cold Snap. I think.
Yeah, no, that's very good.
Yeah.
That's a good Highlander playable.
Mhm.
Segueing us neatly into
certainly
our
is.
next segment.
So-
Segue.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about Highlander because to us, Highlander was just another, like when we started playing a couple years ago, Highlander was another format that people played. And it wasn't until probably about a year after we started playing again that we realized that most people don't play it in person. It's a popular format on Magic Online, and there's some places where it is played more heavily than others. But Victoria has a very like thriving Highlander community. And briefly, it's called Highlander because there can be only one. Which it's also called 100-card singleton to avoid copyright issues with the term Highlander. And it
Really?
yeah,
Well, that's why EDH changed to Commander.
because it's Elder Dragon Highlander, and Wizards can't support Elder Dragon Highlander because Highlander is a copyrighted term.
Really?
Yeah, because of the movies and stuff.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
that's what the movie. That's
It's
what
like-
that's where the name comes from, right?
it's like Elder Dragon Hogwarts, right?
Of
It's,
course.
it's like
Okay, well, that's different.
And then
it's not different.
well,
it's
They made up a
it's
word.
a made up
Oh,
word from a
okay.
thing, and
it was also that nobody uses actual
was-
Elder Dragons as their
Yeah.
commander.
Well,
So
I was gonna
anyway,
say, I
it's-
thought the Scots would own the word Highlander.
yeah. So anyway, it's a format where you have a deck of 100 cards and you can't have more than one of any given card.
Except for basic.
Yeah, like
lands.
Commander, basic lands, or
Yeah.
obviously.
So just give us, like that's the format, but give us sort of a brief look into this world of Highlander.
All right. Another big difference between it and Commander
Oh yeah,
is the
'Cause-
life total difference.
because
So
we've talked about Commander a lot on
yeah,
the show.
so there's a lot of similarities for people who know Commander. It's a 100-card singleton deck, except you don't have a Commander. So it's 100 cards in the deck instead of 99 and one guy isolated out of there. Similarly, you don't have any deck building restrictions based on color. So in
Yeah, that's a big deal.
yeah, so in EDH, where you're restricted, especially for splashing, you can't have any symbol that doesn't appear in your commander's color. That doesn't matter in Highlander. You can do basically whatever you want, which is a lot of fun. Gives you a lot of freedom. There's no banned list. Again, this opens up deck building for everything, and it can be a little bit scary because you'll see guys running around with power. You'll see guys running around with degenerate combos.
Yeah.
But we have a way of policing that I'll get to in a little bit. And what was the last?
So there's
Well,
no.
it's a lot more competitive than Commander.
Yeah.
It's also 1v1.
Yeah.
It's never multiplayer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the last thing I was going to say, it's one-on-one, and you only have 20 life. So it makes the format a lot faster. So you have to tune your decks to be a lot faster. You have to tune your deck to, I mean, an aggro deck, a good aggro deck can beat you on turn 4 or 5, like
Yep.
in any format. So you can't sit there and dirtle and play your mana rocks or wait till 8 drops hit the field.
Which is impressive considering it's like 100 cards, every card different. It's going to be woefully inconsistent.
Mm-hmm.
And yet,
Yeah, and yet, I mean, if you look at a good red deck wins is a very powerful archetype in
well,
this
it just
format.
plays
Well, I guess, I
75
mean,
lightning bolts.
Yeah, because there's how many times have they printed lightning bolts, and it's neat because even incinerate in some red decks isn't good enough. You know, 3 damage for 2 mana. They've
Yeah.
printed enough things where that math doesn't get you there, and you can just
I guess when I say the deck isn't like, it's not that the deck is inconsistent, it's that your draws will be inconsistent.
Yeah.
But again, in a red deck, you can pretty much guarantee that in your grip of 7 cards, you'll have 2 cards that probably do the same thing as any other random 2
Mhm.
cards from your deck.
Yeah,
So
even-
it's interesting that like Highlander couldn't have really existed, 10 years ago.
yeah without
It's-
the card pool.
Yeah, the card pool is so big now that that there are sort of multiple variations on the same cards.
a lot of the fun of the format is that it has access to the entire depth and breadth of Magic's history. So it's like you can play
So,
cards.
so just when you say there's no ban list, it is
there's
that,
there's
but-
almost no.
Yeah,
ban.
well,
yeah,
but
yeah.
but it's every like it's sort of legacy.
Yeah, you can play
everything-
everything from alpha
Everything.
forward.
With the
Okay.
exception of all the uncards.
Yeah, you can't play
We don't play the
uncards,
uncards
You can't
or the
play
anti-cards.
or the reflex cards.
Yeah, yeah. So
Do
one,
we actually have reflex cards banned?
I'm pretty sure it's just
Brett
an
should-
unspoken
just
rule.
one
It's-
time, Brett should play Chaos Orb.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
yeah. So one of the neat things you can do in your local community, and one of the things that we've done is we've created our own points list.
I forgot to change the tap conceit.
Oh,
Sorry, continue.
For everybody who was confused why we weren't talking about this is
There
actually
you
Tap
go.
It's
This
actually
show.
tap conceit.
this
yeah.
show.
Yeah. Whoops.
So one of the really cool things you can do in any community and in your local community is we've created a points list. And when we first started the format, we borrowed this from just the Germanlander.
Because in Germany,
Highlanders-
Highlanders played mostly in Victoria, Germany, and Australia.
yeah, and like
in
all
Australia,
across
they
like
do it with 60
Scandinavia.
cards.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about
What? Yeah.
variants afterwards.
Australia.
Yeah. 60 card singleton. It's really neat too.
Seems super
We
turbo.
got to try and
bet-
stay focused.
I
There's so many cool veins.
I
in
bet the
this.
lands tap the other way in Australia too.
Yeah, the tap signal, the tap
And
symbol is actually
Everyone
backwards.
plays land in front of stuff.
Oh my
I
god.
hate
Yeah.
people who do that. Ben Wheels. Mm.
What a jerk.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway,
points list.
Yeah, so the points list is really neat because you can customize it to what you want your local metagame to look like. So cards that we find that are dominating a format are too oppressive or, just generally feel overly powerful, you assign a point value to. And this is sort of the only deck building restriction we have in the game. So we arbitrarily chose the number 14. And then you assign a value to each card. And then you add up all your
Well,
points
not
cards
each and every card, but like
Yeah.
cards
that you're
of
worried
concern.
about. Yeah. So
how
just to
many
show-
how many cards are on your points list at the
2
moment?
dozen.
30? Yeah, somewhere around there, somewhere between
Okay.
2 dozen and 3 dozen. So to show rough power level, a 1-point card, we've got Sensei's Divining Top, we've got Stoneforge Mystic, we've got Jace the Mind Sculptor, all very powerful cards, all cards that have been banned in formats because they're too powerful. And then this is only a 1-point card. And then really, really powerful cards, the highest we have is 6.
Is that for Time Vault?
Time Vault's actually 7. Yeah. Time Vault is 7, but like
Wait,
Black
let me-
Diamond is 6 points. Sol Ring,
Mox Diamond?
wow, Black Lotus.
There you go.
That really.
Get on the ball.
Yeah. Black Lotus, pardon me, is 6 points. Sol Ring is 6 points. Tinker is 6 points. So you can have
Wow.
decks that have
Time Vault. Was
Time
the-
Vault.
Time Vault.
Time
Yeah.
Vault 7 points.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know Time Vault, welcome to one of the most outrageously broken cards ever.
Combos well with Voltaic Key.
You just like untap Time Vault, take an extra turn,
You-
pass, untap key, untap Time Vault, take another key. You don't even win. You just don't give your opponent a turn until
Yeah.
you win.
That's
It only
gross.
costs 2 to bring out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
many different ways can you untap an artifact?
A million.
Holy shit.
Yeah, if you have the Tezzeret Planeswalker, if you there's
Rel Zarek taps Time Vault now.
yeah, it's a gross card, and I'm sorry for those of you who would want to play this format and are afraid of Time Vault. It happens every now and then. I mean, luckily Shatter is also a card.
Well,
Mhm.
Crush.
Crush. I mean, there's a million ways for
that's the-
every color.
And
to
Of
it's-
kill
course, you
that
have to
card.
have a turn in order to
It's
cast
important,
Shatter.
yeah, and it's important to know that like if you're thinking that maybe you want to try playing some Highlander, you want to try and start a group for it, at like your local game store or just among your friends, you can also just make up your own points list, or you
ban list,
you
yeah.
can do a ban list. You can just be like, all right, guys, I know that no one could ever afford it, but Time Vault is banned.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, all power and neat
But
stuff
the
like
thing
that.
is, in this format, you're allowed all these powerful cards, but there's also powerful answers, and they don't necessarily have to cost a lot. So it's like
Yeah.
in a format where you could go turn one like Tinker into Blightsteel Colossus, your opponent could also go Swords to Plowshares.
And you're like, I'm
And it's
ruined.
just like, well,
And I know that one of the reasons that the red deck is so good is because what do you assign points to in the red deck, right?
It's neat, yeah. Wasteland, Strip
Oh.
Mine, you can do Mana Denial. So their normal package,
Okay. So the
Wheel of Fortune is 1 point.
Yep.
So that,
Yep.
that they Lightning Bolt you 6 times. Wheel of Fortune, put 6 more Lightning Bolts into their hand. Lightning Bolt you
So
6 times.
because you can't put points on any of the burn.
Oh God, Price of Progress.
Right. I was about to say price of progress.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
price of progress, just because this is because this is an older one, but it's super scary.
this
Is
card is so dumb.
It's
How
like
powerful it is
Legacy
in this format.
Classic. Yeah.
one in a red for an instant deals 2 damage to each player for each non-basic land he or she controls.
So picture the scene.
What a shock that you would be running non-basic lands.
Picture the scene. You're
in a-
like
in a
couple
format.
turns in, you've
Oh,
got
shock.
4 or 5 mountains in play. Your opponent has like 4 or 5 original duels in play, and you're like,
Get you
Like-
for 10 with 2 mana.
at instant speed. They're like,
Mhm.
I cast a
I
spell.
think one of the
I
people
will
on the
respond.
card. I think the people on the card are actually vomiting in disgust.
Well, they're choking to death on some sort of toxic machinery, I think.
Yeah,
Shame.
it's the price of progress.
Yeah, these guys are not having a good
That's a
time.
well-named card. I like that a lot.
Man versus nature is not a fair fight.
Yeah, the flavor's really good. So, so that's that's the format. That's sort of what could be considered the metagame. Why don't you just walk us through this deck of yours that you
This-
have?
The best part about Highlander is you can play some weird decks.
So obviously not card by card, but give us give us a rundown of your deck.
Man, I
'Cause
make
this deck-
some of the weirdest decks in the format.
This guy-
This
I-
deck amuses me a lot.
Yeah, I love this format because it gives me so much freedom as a deck builder. So I actually made a 5-color lands deck, and it takes from like Seismic Assault. It takes from Aggro Loam that you see in Legacy lists, as well as the Legacy lands deck. So
Give us a just briefly, because again, this is this
So
is this is for casual magic.
Yeah,
when,
yeah,
you,
yeah,
when
yeah.
you say aggro loam,
yeah. Oh, pardon me. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, that's not a
archetype.
card. I thought that was a.
No. It's
Inside
an
baseball.
archetype.
the
Pardon
card
me.
that you want is
Life from the Loam.
Life from the Loam.
Life from the Loam is an extremely
Uh,
powerful card.
I was kind of hoping that aggro loam was a card.
It's like a
No,
like
sorry,
the loam's
Yeah,
it's
attacking.
like a 3/3 ooze for 2.
Yeah, I'm speaking in
Aggro Loam.
in jargon and tongues and crazy stuff like that. So Life from the Loam is one of the neatest land cards they've ever printed.
It's real strong.
It's real strong, and you can do all kinds of neat stuff. I mean, obviously, one of the most degenerate things you can do is if you play with Strip Mine or if you play with Wasteland, some type of land that destroys their land. You destroy their land, it goes into your graveyard. You cast Life from the Loam. You bring it back into your hand, and then you play it and you destroy their lands, and you create this cycle of mana
Yeah, well, and then
deprivation.
on your draw step, you dredge Life from the Loam, return Wasteland again, and
Yeah, and then
and you're
over and
just a
over and
jerk.
over. Yeah,
if you have like fast spawn in play, you just wipe out 2 of their lands every
yeah.
turn.
Other neat things you can do with it. There's all the cycle lands. The cycle land is a land that for 1 colorless, you can discard that land to draw another card. And if you have 2 or 3 of those, you can get this really powerful draw engine. And there's all kinds of neat stuff that people have done with Life from the Loam. You can do, all of a sudden, you can turn your graveyard into your hand. You can do all kinds of really interesting stuff with lands in your graveyard. Similarly, if you play an old card, Crucible of Worlds.
I was gonna ask about Crucible.
Crucible of Worlds is in there too. By the way, these are pointed cards. Yeah, Life from Loam is 1 point. Crucible of Worlds is 1 point in our system. So that our metagame has acknowledged that these are powerful cards and restricts us accordingly. Similarly, Wasteland. I can't even play Strip Mine. Also, it's too degenerate. I don't want to hurt people that badly.
Yeah, it's too degenerate to play Strip Mine.
So
Well, yeah.
so what's Fast Bond? Because this is like the keystone of
Yeah,
this
so
deck,
this
right?
is the
It
keystone
really
of the deck
is.
is a card called Fast Bond, and if we keep Crucible up as well, they play real well together. So Fast Bond is a card that says you can play as many lands as you want every turn, except every land you play after the first is going to do a damage to you. So this lets you set up these really cool cycles. So with Crucible of Worlds, if you have any way to put lands into your graveyard, you can play them for free. So you can start off like if you have a snap land, a fetch land, for example, a land that you sacrifice, find another land. That's obviously a sillier use for it, but you get these really cool cycles.
So you could, if you have Fast Bond out, because it's an enchantment, if you have Fast Bond out and Crucible out, and they have, say 4 lands, you can go strip mine, kill a land, bring strip mine back
Take a
into play
damage.
for the pittance of 1 damage
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
Kill their land, bring it back,
Yeah.
kill it, and you can just
They will
That's-
never
you
play
can-
another land.
for 3 life you can just kill all their mana.
Yeah, one-sided Armageddon.
It's really
That's disgusting.
fun. And then you get nutty turns. Like you played against me once where you kept this really greedy hand where you went turn 1 fastball on 5 lands. I was like, well, that's your opener. I'm in trouble now. It's like it doesn't even matter what you do. You have 5
I mean-
lands on turn 1.
And hopefully you don't top deck any more land.
Yeah, a really neat card in this deck too. It's sort of a corner card, but it's fun to talk about. It's called. Let's see if I
Yeah,
can.
how
pull
do
it.
you win, by the way?
Yeah, winning is not always my first goal.
Because this
I
deck
just
can
like
be
really-
sometimes a bit of a dirtle
It can
knot.
dirtle. So it's a 100-card deck that plays 54 lands.
Wow.
That's super high because the average for Highlander is
It's like
about
37.
36. Well, 37 for a control deck, like 34 for
Yeah, if
an
you're
aggro
playing
deck.
a mana rock or 2 or something like that. So you start creating these infinite loops. So there's a really cool old legendary creature. Actually, not that old. It's from Zendikar block. It's called Obnixis.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Or Obnixilis.
Obnixilis or something like that. So every time you play a land, your opponent loses 3 life. There's a really cool card called Valakut. If you have 5 mountains and you play a mountain, every time you play a land, they take 3 damage. There's even a very humble antelope known as the
Oh,
Grazing Gladeheart
Yep.
that every time you play a land, you gain 2 life. And if you have any way to start a cycle, you can just play lands over and over and over.
So in the magical dream world where you have the Grazing Gladeheart and Fast Bond in play, and
amazing.
say
Gain infinite
the
life.
Crucible, you can just cycle your land. You can do that strip mine thing I was talking about, and
Oh,
actually
yeah.
gain a life every time you do that.
Yeah, it's real mean.
Well, it's like when you have
So is everything in that deck oriented around? Actually, it's
It's
putting
lands.
but it's not actually like using the land like man lands or anything like that. It's actually just using
can.
using the land coming into play
Yeah.
effects.
Yeah.
Now we were talking last week about gate crash cards that were relevant for Commander. Would you consider at all the new Borborygmos with his?
Oh man, I
with
tried so hard to put Borborygmos in this deck, and
With
he was
his-
just too big.
land discard ability. He's just too hard to cast.
He's too hard to cast. He's too. It's funny. Well, he's what 9 mana, 8 mana.
8, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
eight.
4, 2 red, 2 green, or something to
Yeah,
cast, and
he's-
he's amazing.
He's
was
rough.
the fattest.
There's a similar card that they used to have. It's an enchantment called Seismic Assault, and
Ah,
so that ability is new. And Seismic Assault used to be 3 red mana, discard a land, do 2 damage to a creature or player.
mhm.
And there's a whole archetype around that card called Seismic Swans, and there's another card called Swans. It combos with it. We don't need to get into the combo, but that enchantment's in this deck as well. So that combos with Life from the Loam. Return 3 lands to your hand, do 6 damage. Return 3 lands to your hand, do 6 damage. One of the really neat things you can do when you're talking about Fast Bond is if you have any way to return a land to your hand, you can just play it over and over infinitely. And there are 3 ways to do that in this deck. One is a legendary creature called Moloku.
Oh, Moloku's crazy.
Moloku's fantastic, but if you can play lands infinitely and you can return lands infinitely, you can make a million 1/1. You can gain 1,000,000 life. You can do all kinds
Float
of silly
infinite mana.
stuff. Float infinite mana. Trade Routes is another great one.
Mhm.
Same ability. It's colorless and a blue enchantment. Pay 1 to return a land to your hand, or you can cycle any land you have in your hand to keep drawing a card. So it's a very powerful draw engine.
Wow.
And there's also even a.
I mean, you're
pardon me,
losing
just-
one life every time you do the fast bond, though, right?
Yeah, but you're getting a lot of value out of that.
That's not the point.
There was just following on from something sort of outside the show. James and I were on Limited Resources last week with our friend Marshall, and we cracked a pack of Ice Age, and in it was a card called the Sunstone, which is it's an artifact. I believe it was 2 or 3 to cast, and for 2 and sacrifice a snow land, you fog.
Oh.
Yup.
There's a neat one.
Is that at all relevant for your deck?
I've thought about it. A way to put lands in your graveyard is good. It's really funny. This deck cares less about having lands in play than it actually cares about the action of playing a land. And that's something that one of the really tricky things in playing this deck is understanding that, because you'll have a hand with 5 lands in it, and you're like, well, I don't actually ever want to play any of these until I get value out of playing them, which is quite neat. An amazing card in this archetype though is called Constant Mists. For 1 in green, you can fog.
Wow.
You play that card?
I don't, but I should.
Yeah.
there's
Just
not that-
infinite fog.
Yeah, and it has buyback, sacrifice a land. And if you
wow.
have a way to always get a land back, if you have Crucible in play, if you have Life from Loam in play, you can kind of lock them out and then just fog every turn.
So I'm looking through. I'm just flipping through your deck here, and you've got you have a wasteland, tundra. You've got like Mazavith and Italian Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale,
Yeah,
which is how much is that worth?
Don't even worry about it.
I think I got it for about $200.
Wow. So what? So
Sorry,
Yeah.
what's that one? Tabernacle?
Tabernacle.
not that we won't.
The Tabernacle.
Not that.
In fact, it's not just any tabernacle; it's
The
the
Tabernacle.
Tabernacle.
Wow.
And oh look, there's a savannah. So not that we won't come back to this, but what if you're in a position where you're like, boy, Highlander sounds like a lot of fun, but good Christ, I can't afford all those
Yeah.
dual lands.
Well, I'ma tell you.
Yeah.
Well, suddenly Alex comes into play.
I was sort of in that exact position, and a couple of us were, because myself and a lot of my friends, we really love Highlander. We love it a lot, but there is sometimes, for better or worse, this sort of like price barrier to entry, because it's like you can build a deck that's cheap for regular Highlander, but a Jace the Mind Sculptor is always going to be a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and there's no card that replaces him.
Mm-hmm. And we have an affluent Magic community here in Victoria, so they can afford to run an
No, it's
Italian
like
Tabernacle
our
of Pendrell Vale.
Monday Night Highlander. There's people often playing with like Moxes, and like Brett. He's played his Black Lotus.
Yeah, really
he
cool
won
deck.
Highlander with his Storm deck.
It was amazing.
Wow.
It was amazing.
Stormlander. It works.
Lander.
Wow.
Yeah, and
He gets consistent draws out of 100 card singleton. It's ridiculous.
what are his points? It's Black Lotus, Mystical Tutor, and Ancestral Recall. So you got
Yeah,
2
that's it.
power there. Yeah, and that's all the 14 points allows.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So
By the way, that Tabernacle for $200, total bargain.
Oh yeah, no, it was a good deal. Well, it's also Italian, so the Italian takes the price off a bit.
Can you find the Italian? It's on the right. There's the alternate languages.
So what we
Yeah.
did was we invented a format called Budgetlander.
And you were at like ground zero for the inception
Yeah,
of
we
this
were
format.
like myself and Chris Ireland and Jeremy White and a couple of other guys. We were talking about it, and we came up with this really simple rule. It's exactly the same as Highlander, but you can play no cards that cost more than $3, as checked on MagicCards.info, which is an aggregate site. So it gives you like a really broad idea.
You go by the average?
Yeah, we go
Low.
by the average low.
Hmm.
So if the card is available in any printing at $3 or less, you can play it,
Mm-hmm.
which is fun and interesting because there's no cards that will be more than that. So it actually like caps the price of your deck, and most of the playable cards are way cheaper than that anyway.
Yeah.
So if
It's sort of it's like Pauper, but with a little more flexibility.
Yeah, it's not
Not-
quite Pauper and it's not quite Peasant,
yeah.
because you can play bad rares and like really terrible mythics.
So not to put you on the spot. I don't know how your math is. How much would you say?
Oh my god, this deck is ridiculous.
Is
And this
in
deck has
your
come
deck.
from like years of hard collecting, but it plays 6 to 8 fetches. It plays 9 of the original 10 dual lands. Moat, Tabernacle, and a couple of the piece things. This is probably $2,000,
Jeez.
maybe 25.
And this deck of yours, Alex?
Maybe 40 or $50.
Yeah.
So
Like, probably less.
you
actually.
can come into
Have-
this format
have
at
we-
any level.
Have these two decks fought?
Probably, and I think we're probably about 50-50.
Yeah. So there you go. The thing with this format is that like you get more options the more expensive you go, but you don't have to play expensive cards
Yeah.
to have a really good deck.
Yeah, one of the things that I love doing with Commander is, once I have the colors for a Commander deck that I I know I'm going to do locked in and I have most of the cards, I like to go to like the junk rare bin at the card shop
There's
and be
some
like,
good stuff
let's
there.
let's look at all the $1 rares that they have here and sort of flip through and be like, this thing's hilarious. I'm
Yeah.
totally going to run this.
Yeah.
What are
Yeah.
some-
Well, I mean, and a lot of the weird, screwy combo cards, because they are so specific, aren't actually worth much.
Yep. The other thing is that cards that are like super banned in all formats are also really cheap. Like Skull Clamp
Yeah.
is
Tinker
crazy.
is legal.
Skull Clamp and Tinker are crazy powerful, and they only cost a few dollars.
It's
Yeah.
I,
Strip mine is legal in Budgetlander too.
I was actually noticing that I like the sort of the different sort of how the powers work out. That like Jace the Mind Sculptor, 1 point, Tinker 6 points.
Yeah.
And then the price difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But like in other formats, of course, Jace is so powerful that he's banned. but-
so I should tell you a little bit about this deck. This is Rock Zombies. So it's black green.
Rock
a-
zombies.
yeah, does
it's a
it? Does it?
certain-
I believe it always has to be said.
Rock
It
It wasn't a rock. It was a rock zombie. This is just.
I
A
didn't
sort
even
of,
think it was a rock. It was obviously a zombie.
it's a kind of mid-range aggro deck. It plays. It's a very tribal deck. So it plays all the good black and green zombies. So it's like you start with your Diagraph Ghoul and Carnophage style, like 1 mana for 2/2s, and then you start getting into sort of more synergistic cards that start to like pump each other. Like Zombie Trailblazer is a big deal in this deck because like
Which is a 2/2 for black, black, black.
it's one of those cards that you read it 5 times and then the 6th time you're like, oh.
Tap an untapped zombie you control. Target land becomes a swamp until end of turn. Tap an untapped zombie you control. Target creature gains swamp walk until end of turn.
So because of
So
the
if
way
you have 3 zombies,
yeah, because of the way this ability is worded,
You can tap
you can
it
tap
the
him
turn it
as
comes
if
into
he
play.
has haste.
Because the tapping is a cost of the card, or is a cost of the ability, not an actual
Mhm.
tap ability of the
So,
zombie trailblazer.
what you can do
Tricky
with this
dicky.
guy is if you have like 1 or 2 guys in play, you play him, pass the turn on their upkeep, tap all your zombies, turn all their duels into
Mhm.
swamps.
Oh,
Mana
and,
denial.
and
yeah.
then they
Mana
can't. Oh,
I've
goodness
done that
me.
before, like on
See, I was thinking. See, I was going where Paul was going, where it's like I've got 3 guys. I tap 1 guy to give them a swamp.
Yep.
Tap another to give my 3rd guy swamp walk, and then just crush in
yeah.
unblockable,
Yeah, you
which
do-
is great.
you do that as well.
But I didn't think about like I've got 5 zombies. You've got 5 lands. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I
shuts off-
turn your strip mine into a swamp.
Exactly. Shuts off man lands.
Maze.
Yeah, it turns off. Not the maze is
No,
in this format,
Budgetlander. Yeah.
but
Like,
similar cards like utility lands, you can just shut them off for a turn. It's really useful.
mhm.
And then like
I see why Scred is so
yeah,
playable in
Scred's-
this format.
Scred's real fun.
Mhm.
So you find yourself playing a lot of cards that just barely didn't make the cut in regular Highlander. Cards
Mhm.
that you like really, really, really wanted to play, but there's always something better. So I mean, this is the deck I finally got to play Unearth in. There's lots of other guys.
What would you be playing in normal Highlander instead of Unearth and Budgetlander?
Anime Dead.
No, Animate Dead is in here. The
Oh.
only only one that I can't play in this deck is Reanimate
Oh, okay.
because it's just a little too
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah,
1
yeah.
mana, animate something from any graveyard, and you lose life equal to its
Mhm.
converted mana cost.
So what are some other ones, if you can think offhand, maybe just flipping through, what are some other sort of, I guess, not that the cards are bad, but what are some other sort of concessions that you've made in this deck that like I'm playing this instead of a similar card?
You're playing like Murmuring Bosk instead of Bayou.
Yeah, you lose the
mana
consistency
base
of
is
mana
tricky.
fixing,
Right.
which is where most of your cost comes in a Highlander deck is fixing your mana base.
Is those
'Cause if you-
crazy land cards? Yeah.
Yeah, because you really want the original dual lands, you want the Ravnica dual lands,
Yeah.
and then you want the fetch lands.
Yeah, you'll play. So in this format, because a lot of the land base that's like really, really good is out of your price range, you have to just sort of like improvise. And they're not bad, they're just slow.
Mhm.
So like you play Evolving Wilds, you can play all the panoramas. There's a lot of actually pretty good duels that you can play that fix your mana quite well. There's
is Murmuring Bosk in your Tree Folk deck?
should be.
No, it's
Oh, 'cause
not
'cause it-
because it has a white mana symbol on it.
Oh,
and
it's
my
green
tree
black.
folk deck is Golgari colors
It's neat.
only.
Counts as a forest. You can fetch for it.
Oh,
Yep.
that's sweet.
It's really good.
Real brief. Do you I know that I looked this up and told you. Do you know why the green black mid-range decks are called rock decks?
I have no idea.
No
actually.
idea.
Okay, this is like
Here
one
we
of
go.
those. This is one of those weird magic history story lessons.
Okay.
There was a deck from a period of time. I don't recall how long ago it was. There was a
They
green.
use rocks for dice.
No, it was a green black mid-range deck that had the Phyrexian Plague Lord
Okay.
and the Deranged Hermit.
Hermit Druid.
That's
no,
the guy
Druid.
No. The one who makes squirrels.
The,
Swirly.
the guy that makes squirrels.
Okay.
And it was the deck was as a reference to the at the time very popular World Wrestling Federation. The deck was named The Rock and His Millions. The Phyrexian Plague Lord was The Rock, and the Hermit and the Squirrels were his millions.
That's
Because
so weird.
fans of The Rock are the millions and millions. And the deck was called The Rock and His Millions. And then through the years, it just sort of became that a green-black mid-range deck is called a rock deck.
I'm so unhappy right now.
And that's actually Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Deal with it.
Isn't that crazy?
I think that's great.
I don't really see the resemblance myself.
Yeah, it's just because he's a big guy.
How about no? Bring up the deranged hermit. Clearly, that's the Rock.
You got to know that like WWF, especially in like the Attitude Era with The Rock and Stone Cold, was very in like the public eye at the time. And
I need an adult.
I just thought that was really interesting.
I love deranged.
Do you guys happen to have? I'm sorry, you were saying?
I was saying on Mark Rosewater's Tumblr, he is constantly fielding questions on why they don't make more squirrel, why they don't
Yeah.
make squirrel creatures, and he's like, I would totally be down for making squirrel creatures, but they won't let me.
Do you guys happen to have deck lists for these handy?
Not offhand, but I'm sure we can post them somewhere.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to put these on the forums on Loading Ready
Yeah.
Run for people
No,
to
I
see.
can totally write this down and then
Yeah.
you can put it up.
I mean,
Link
I
to
know
the
it's a
points list.
yeah,
Yeah, like all kinds of neat
that'd
stuff.
be great. Yeah, on the post for this. Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, we'll link to the Loading Ready Run forum thread
Mm.
in the description, and in the forum thread we'll post a link to the local points list that they use here, and hopefully be able to post Surgeon Alex's
Is there
deck
actually like
lists.
a website?
It's on the Vic Magic forums, isn't it?
Which
We
is now the Vic
stopped
Magic
using it.
Facebook
Yeah, we just have a
page.
Facebook page. Just
Okay.
there's Vic Magic. There's also Vic Highlander. I don't know if you're on
There's-
that one yet.
Well, there's Vic Highlander and there's also Budgetlander
Yeah,
as a
and-
group on
But you'll be able
Facebook.
to provide me with a link to the points list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get
Okay,
get something
sweet.
too. Yeah. An amazing sort of thing too, Budgetlander and the points list. That's the freedom you have with this format. If you decide to create your own in your own city in your own little play group or whatever, you can put whatever restrictions you want on
Yeah,
it. You
or
have
not at all.
or none at all. Exactly.
You
So
could allow uncards if you wanted to.
yeah,
You could have a really weird meta.
it's fantastic. The German Lander, which we often borrow from a lot, has the banned list, and they sanction. I don't know if it's sanctioned. Pardon me. I don't think you can sanction it because it's still technically casual. But they have massive events in Europe, like 60 people, upwards
Like,
100 people.
Technically casual, but
Sorry, pardon me, not
Yeah.
massive.
They've
If you
also
combine
got
it
a
to
lot
like
of
Well,
sweet
TTQ,
deck
or,
lists.
yeah,
don't you like? Aren't the weekly Highlander tournaments at Yellow Jacket here? Isn't the prize, if there's a certain number of people, isn't the prize like a dual land?
yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. We have turnouts from 20 people to 40 people on just a weekly casual night on every Monday. Buy-in is 2 packs, which is normally not that bad. And just because, I mean, if you look at my deck too, my collection is getting pretty nuts since a lot of people have that. We have a very top-heavy payout, pardon me. So like an F&M will often, if you go 2-2, if it's a 4-round and you have 2 wins and 2 losses, they'll often give you 2 packs. You'll win back your untree. We only pay out winning records in
Mhm.
Highlander. So if a 4-round twist, if you go 3-1, you might win 4 to 6 packs, and then the winner, the Highlander, since there can only be one. There's never splitting in Highlander.
Nice.
That doesn't
like
follow
that.
that doesn't follow
There's
the
a-
spirit of the
I like
of
that a
the
lot.
Unless
format.
it's splitting your head from your shoulder.
Yeah,
Oh.
there's also Ben Wheeler forcing you to mull to 0.
This is
Well,
why.
it's not forcing you. Doesn't he do that to Spencer all the time?
No. Spencer, yeah, you can do whatever you
Spencer's
want.
like,
He'll like
blind
blind keep game 3 or
Game-
mull to 0 top deck game 3, just ridiculous, whatever you want. But
This
yeah,
is why when you take a Highlander deck and just take one of the legendary creatures from it and say, "Oh, it's a commander deck now."
Nope.
This is why you are a terrible person if you do that.
Yeah. I mean,
Although-
that being said, I mean, people have showed up with commander decks, and I mean, a well-structured commander deck is still competitive. It can be a little bit slow, but if you hit your mana rock, 8-drop on turn 4,
Mhm.
I mean,
The other thing is,
And once
that
again, it all depends on your
Yeah, well,
own
it's like-
local
Yeah.
metagame.
because Highlander deck is focused towards demolishing one opponent, they're sometimes not even very good in multiplayer. Like mono red Highlander in Commander would be terrible.
Awful.
Just
Yeah.
awful. You'd just be like, okay, I'm out of burn spells.
like I pick on one person, everyone else kills me.
I
Yeah.
gotta find my Arc Slogger.
And-
Oh wait, I can only kill one.
Yeah, and not just that, at 40 life, a lightning bolt isn't going to get you there.
Nope.
You know,
Right, yeah,
you
the
really-
math totally changes.
Yeah.
Oh, really
Yeah, Commander,
changes.
Lightning Bolt, terrible. Highlander, Lightning Bolt, great.
Yeah,
Well, I feel like we were able to cover like a lot and at the same time so little about
There's
this
a lot
format.
to this
So
format.
I hope that anyone listening, if you have questions about it, please do post them in the thread on Loading Ready Run, and hopefully we can have. I know that Serge is leaving town pretty soon, but hopefully we can have
Hopefully
Alex come
here.
back to answer some further specific questions about Highlander. But this was fascinating.
So there's the Vic Magic Facebook group.
Mhm.
Are there any actual like just Highlander general resources that people can look up on?
German
online?
Lander. If you, they have the whole forum and websites online too
Yeah.
from the format we borrowed a
Also-
lot from.
Is it just it's like Germanlander.com?
Actually, if you Google
called?
German Lander or
Also, MTG Pulse has a lot of good German and European lists. To just
Cockatrice, people play it online all the time. If you're looking just to make a 100-card singleton deck and play test it, it's
I'm sure
really
we'll have
neat.
lots of links for
And
people.
and again, while it's not officially a sanctioned format, there are lots of people playing Highlander on Magic Online, right?
Yeah, well, a 100-card singleton is a recognized format on Magic Online,
Oh, is it?
and you can actually do like 100-card singleton 2-man queues and stuff.
Okay.
So that's most people like it's most prevalent actually as an online format. And when we first mentioned to, for example, Marshall and to some of our Magic playing friends in Seattle that people were playing Highlander paper in real life in Victoria and that it was incredibly competitive,
Oh yeah.
they were like,
What?
Really? So yeah, that was really interesting.
A fun thing we do on the local Monday nights to keep it competitive. If one person wins multiple times in a row, multiple weeks in a row, we actually put a bounty on their head, and you can win a fetch land or a Ravnica land just for taking out the bounty,
Or just their scalp.
or just their scalp. Yeah, and you can deck make just to hate out their deck, and
Oh, I like that.
hopefully just get paired with them, and you get a free land just for beating the bounty.
That's
Oh,
fine.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
Well,
and it doesn't happen too often because no deck can be that dominant. I mean, occasionally people will win, but it's luck of the draw.
That's
It's
awesome.
Mhm.
Well, Serge, Alex, thank you guys so much for joining us. That was a really neat episode. We ran way over time, and Serge, you're gonna have to book it to where you have to be next. But
Ooh.
but thank you guys so much for coming on, telling us about it, and thank you for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed that. And if you have any questions, again, post them in the Loading Ready Run forums, and we will talk to you guys next time on Tap Tap Concede.
God.
See.